Hey guys, it is Thursday, so we are almost through our next week of school here, which is great. However, it's another week that we're not together, so that is not so great. But it was great seeing you guys in the Google Meet the other day. Those of you that couldn't join us, hopefully you'll get on the next one. Now, today's lesson, you already have this sheet. In fact, I sent this at the beginning of the week to your folks. This is one that we put inside that Ziploc baggie to kind of make a dry erase board, and it's our place value chart. So I wanted to make sure that we just kind of reviewed something with decimals before we get into today's lesson. So this will be real quick and easy. So as you see, here's our place value, like 10,000, thousand, hundreds, tens, ones. Those are all of our whole numbers. And remember, there's like this imaginary decimal that is at the end of the ones digits in all of our whole numbers. Then one to the right of that decimal is tenths, and two place values to the right is hundredths. So if I have a number like 0.1, I don't really say that number's name is 0.1. He's really called 1/10. Okay, so one number after the decimal, 1/10. Now, there's only a certain set of numbers that can be written in this tenths box. So there's 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, 9/10. Now, can I put 0.10 in that tenths box? No. Any number can only have one digit in a place value box. So the only numbers that can really be written as tenths are 1 through 9. And again, we say them 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, and so on, okay? Now, how many number spots after the decimal point is tenths? It's one number spot after the decimal, always. So if you ever have a question that asks you how many tenths is in the answer, you know there's only gonna forever and ever be one number after the decimal point, because tenths are one number after the decimal point. Now, we've been working on making equivalent fractions. So 1/10, so if I would have colored one whole bar on a place value chart in a tens place value chart, it's the same thing as if I would cover it in 10 hundredths, right? So when I look at this now, just by adding a 0 into the hundredths column, 1/10 is the same thing as 10 hundredths. And that's what we've been working on all week, is kind of finding those equivalent fractions, right? So if 1/10 is the same thing as 10 hundredths, what do you think 2/10 would be as a hundredth? Well, 2/10 is the same thing as 20 hundredths. 3/10, it's the same thing as 30 hundredths. And I can go down this entire list and keep adding zeros. And I know you don't see this because I'm holding the paper straight, but 1/10, 2/10, 3/10 turns into 10 hundredths, 20 hundredths, 30 hundredths, 40 hundredths. These are equivalent fractions. The only difference is what place value are they in, either tenths or hundredths, and how many numbers after the decimal point do they have. Tenths only has one number after the decimal, but hundredths is always going to have two numbers after the decimal. So if you have a problem in its direction says, how many hundredths, blah, 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 whatever, your brain should be going, they asked for hundredths. I know I'm going to have two numbers after the decimal. Not 3, not 1, not 76. Two numbers after the decimal, and you will always have that when you want to know hundredths. Now, you're going to have to be able to kind of train your brain to think that way. They ask for tenths, I know I only have one number after the decimal. They ask for hundredths, I know I only have two numbers after the decimal, all right? And that's going to be really important, because sometimes some of those decimals are going to get a little tricky when we change them from fractions to decimals, and that's what our lesson is going to be for today. So this was just a real quick, almost like a little mini number talk about tenths, hundredths, equivalent decimals, equivalent fractions, and how many numbers go after the decimal point in each of those two place value columns. Okay, so I'm going to stop this one and send it off to you, and then I'll get started on the instructional video that's going to come next.